Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Sound Decisions here on Passion for Sound. For some time now I've been thinking about this video and how to do it best, and that is I wanted to talk about how to choose the right equipment for your tastes. It's really hard when you get into the world of audiophile gear to work out what you're going to enjoy and what you're not going to enjoy. There are so many different opinions out there. Everybody's got their own tastes, their own perspectives, their own preferred brands, and so you'll get information from one person saying brand X, product Y is the best thing you'll ever hear, and then somebody else will turn around and say they tried it and it was too bright or it was too warm and they really didn't enjoy it, it didn't gel well with their gear, whatever it might have been. It's a really contradictory hobby at times. So I thought I'd share a few tips and tricks that I've found along the way in my many years of enjoying this hobby to hopefully make it easier for you to find the gear that you're going to love. And the first and most important thing I can say on this topic is all that matters is what you enjoy. If you like a headphone that 90% of other people say is trash, doesn't matter. If you're happy, you're happy. For me, a great test has always been if I put on a headphone and I listen to a favorite track and it makes me want to tap my feet, bob my head, sing along to the music, however you express your enjoyment of the music, that's the test that really tells you if that's the right gear for you. Now, obviously things like headphones and earphones are probably the most expressive in that space. They're the area that you're going to get the most impact on the sound signature in terms of whether it's bright, whether it's dark, whether it's warm, whether it's thick, whether it's bassy, whether it's more treble focused, all of these different descriptors. Most impact is going to come from the headphones that you choose. But at the same time, things like DACs and amps and even cables can have a level of input into that. So it's really important to apply the exact same decision-making process on every part of your source chain. So what I mean by that is if you've got one particular DAC and you go out and buy a different particular DAC, you can go a little bit crazy sometimes thinking, oh, can I hear a bit more in this one? Is there more detail here? Is this soundstage bigger? Is that soundstage bigger? But ultimately, when it comes to listening to the product day in and day out, you're not going to be listening for those things. What you're going to be doing is plugging it in and hopefully just enjoying the music. So for me, the best test I've ever been able to do is after some initial A/Bing to see what's each one doing differently, I like to spend some time just listening. So for instance, when I had the Chord Cutest and the Shit Gumby here, before I swapped over and chose to stick with the Cutest, the way I decided which DAC I liked the most was I'd listen to a whole album on one, and then I'd listen to the same album or a different album, whatever it was. Sometimes it was a bunch of tracks on random. The point being I'd listen for a couple of hours to one particular product and then a couple of hours to the other. And the final decision point for me was always, which one of those DACs do I want to go back to more? If I had to choose one over the other, which one am I going to select for the next listening session? And every single time I've done that, I've never been disappointed with the final decision because I'm deciding based on what I'm enjoying, not based on what somebody on some forum or some YouTube channel is telling me is the better product. Because ultimately we all hear things our own way. I sit here and share my opinions and my perspectives on audio gear, but it doesn't always mean that you're going to enjoy the sounds that I enjoy. I like a warmer, slightly more mid-focused and bass-focused sound that other people find too thick. Other people want more treble extension, more treble detail, whereas I don't enjoy that. So it's really important to understand what you like and then also to find reviewers that either have the same tastes as you or give clear comparisons so you can get a sense that, okay, this particular reviewer likes a brighter sound, maybe I don't like a brighter sound, but when they're giving me a comparison and they're saying product X isn't bright enough, that might be a signal that it's actually going to be good for me because I like something a bit warmer. So hopefully that makes it clear that there's a lot more to it than just what someone says is good. A great example is the Sennheiser HD800 and the HD800S. They're a fantastic headphone, no doubt, but they're not a headphone I've ever enjoyed. I've owned the HD800, I've reviewed the HD800S, neither of them ever kind of grabbed my heart, if you like. They were headphones that I had great respect for, but I never loved. Whereas the Metzer Audio Empyreans, I love to pieces. I will not be parting with these anytime soon because I put them on and I thoroughly enjoy the sound. Likewise, the recently reviewed Audio-Technica ATH M50X is a headphone I just put on and I enjoy. Technically, it's not perfect. It's still a budget headphone and it's got its flaws because of that, but it just has a great engaging, fun and musical sound, and that to me makes it a good headphone. So that's point one, make sure it's a sound that you enjoy. Point two that I wanted to mention here is how do you go about testing the gear? I've already mentioned the idea of doing extended listening between different products so that you're not just jumping between things and A/Bing. But there's another thing I wanted to point out, and that is about diversity in your test tracks. It's a really easy mistake to fall into if you select all of your test tracks with a particular setup. So let's say, for instance, once upon a time I was using the Shure SE846 earphones along with my LG V30 mobile phone. So it was a good setup, great sound quality for what it was, and in listening to that, there were some tracks that I found that I thought, these are brilliant test tracks, I'm going to use these for all my future tests. As time went on though, what I found was that I'd put those same test tracks on a different setup, let's say the Bottlehead mainline here and the Focal clears, and I'd listen to it on that and go, oh, it's not sounding so special. And yet I know for a fact that the mainline and the Focal clears are an excellent setup. And so what that told me was I'd chosen test tracks that had a certain synergy with the gear that I was using at the time. And so what I highly recommend to people is that when you're choosing your test tracks, get your shortlist on one set of gear, but then listen to it across 2 or 3 other pieces of gear and make sure that those tracks are representing what you're looking for in each and every case. Now, the other thing is that test tracks shouldn't always necessarily be about an overall perfection of audio. Sometimes what you're looking for is a track that brings out where a headphone struggles with fast passages, or even a DAC or an amp might struggle with certain fast passages that become congested. Or maybe it's about its ability to produce a soundstage that's a good shape and a good size with good placement of the image. So it's all about having different tracks that do different things and then giving yourself time to listen to those tracks through the gear that you're trying out for a number of goes to really hear all that that gear can do and all of its limitations. I've mentioned A/B listening a couple of times here, and I want to clarify something that's really important when it comes to choosing audio gear. If you're jumping between 2 products quickly, what you're actually doing is focusing your brain and your perceptions from your ears on the things that those 2 products do differently. You're not necessarily getting a good picture of that product for its own merits. For example, if I was to jump quickly between something like the Focal Clear and the Mezzo Audio Empyreans, what I'd quickly start thinking is that the Empyreans are quite thick and bassy, and that the Focal Clears maybe a bit too bright and a little bit lean. In reality, whilst there's a level of truth to both of those statements, both headphones present the music in their own way, and I personally find are both very enjoyable in isolation. There's no doubt the Empyreans are better. There's no doubt the Empyreans suit my taste a little bit more than the Clears do, but I would be completely happy, and was completely happy for a very long time, with the Focal Clears. If I was doing A/B testing though, I would probably never come to that conclusion had I not spent the time to listen to them for an extended period. Our ears and our brain have a certain level of built-in equalization, if you like. If you listen to a headphone that's particularly bright for a period of time, your brain will adapt to that. To a degree, it's never going to turn them into a bassy sounding headphone, but certainly your sensitivity or your awareness of that brightness will gradually pull back a little bit over time. And then if you go and listen to a darker headphone, because your brain's become a little bit less sensitized to the treble, that darker headphone will now sound extra dark because of how your brain's currently processing the sound. Over time, if you listen to that dark headphone for a while, your brain readjusts and maybe becomes less sensitive to the bass and a bit more sensitive to the treble. And then if you flip back again, that previous original headphone now sounds bright and thin. So my point here is that both A/Bing and extended listening are really important. Use A/B listening to work out what's different between these products. For instance, if you're looking for something specifically with a bit more soundstage size, that's a great time to do an A/B test. But if you're then wanting to know which one do I enjoy more, don't base it on an A/B test because you're never going to get an accurate decision. What you need to do is an extended listening test, like I said before, an album or a handful of carefully selected test tracks that you can listen to at length and give each product its chance for you to settle in, for your brain to adjust to its sound, and to see which one after those listening tests you want to go back to and listen to again. Sometimes that's going to result in a situation where you can't decide because you love both. And that's obviously a difficult situation if financially you can't keep both, but it's also the right place to be because in the end, you're going to be judging both products on their full character, not on what's different between the two products you're comparing. Now, the final point that I'd make when it comes to choosing the right audio gear for you is I think it's really helpful for people to get clear about what they do and don't like in sound. And so for me, when I'm choosing gear, I've got a few things that I really focus on. One of them is I know that I like a warmer, more musical presentation. I don't like thick, like really thick, muddy sounds. I do like some treble detail, but I certainly would prefer a bass-oriented headphone to a treble-oriented headphone or earphone. The other thing that I know that I look for is I love a good soundstage presentation. I like to be able to close my ears and really have a sense of the space that the music is in and the individual placement of the sounds within that space. But over the years, I've discovered that I don't want that to be huge. For instance, an HD800 or even a Beyerdynamic T1 creates a soundstage that's a bit too diffuse for me. It's too spread out and I lose that ability to feel that intimate connection to each of the sounds in the music. Whereas something like the AudioFly AF1120 earphones or the Metzer Audio Empyreans produces a slightly more intimate soundstage, but a soundstage that I can really connect with and really get a sense of where each instrument is placed within that soundstage. That's also true for DACs and amps for me. When I'm listening to a DAC or an amp, in most cases, the sound signature should be pretty similar. If we're talking solid state versus solid state, obviously if we're talking tubes, that can be a little bit different because tubes do add their own character. But for the most part, particularly for solid state gear, there shouldn't be vast differences in sound signature. And if there are vast differences, it often tells me something's not quite right. There might be some distortion influencing how we perceive the sound, or maybe it's a poorly implemented analog circuit that's coloring the sound. So in most cases, there shouldn't be a great difference in signature. And therefore what I'm more listening for when it comes to DACs and amplifiers is how is that music being presented? Does it have a good sense of space, a good sense of dynamics? Do I want to tap my feet and sing along? Or does it sound a bit flat and congested and compressed? So it's all about understanding what we like the most and how we like our sound presented so that you can make really informed decisions after some extended listening, not just some A/B testing. To sum it all up, I'm going to restate what I said at the beginning, and that is to say, in the end, all that matters is that you have gear that you enjoy. If someone on a forum pans what you're listening to and you love it anyway, that's fine, keep enjoying it. When I reviewed the AudioQuest Nighthawk headphones, for instance, there were plenty of people out there that hated them. I loved them at the time, I still love them to this day. They're not a perfect headphone, they've got a really unusual coloration, but it's a coloration that I personally enjoy, and that's a good enough reason to listen to them. Just because they're not accurate, and even though I know they're not accurate, it doesn't make them a bad headphone if it's something that you personally enjoy. So go out there, try as much gear as you can, be confident in your decisions based on what you enjoy, and less so worrying about what someone's written or someone said about the products that you're drawn to. If you enjoy it, that's good enough. Which is why at the end of all my videos, I tend to say, as I'm going to say right now, happy listening. That's what it's about, is enjoying the listening and enjoying the music. So I hope that helps you go out there and find great gear that you really enjoy. If you've got any questions about what I've said here, if there's anything you think I've missed you'd like to know more about, do drop me a comment down below and I'll try to respond to them as quickly as I can. But for now, happy listening, happy auditioning perhaps, and I'll see you here next time on Passion for Sound.